Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order and thank everybody for coming today. And with that, Matt, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First is housekeeping. We did get this noticed properly and appropriately and in the newspaper and whatnot, whatever normal things to have this meeting today.
Yes.
Okay. So the record indicate we were properly noticed so that we can continue doing this business today. Now, I want to start with the reason I asked for a 2-week or 3-week continuance was so I could go home, assess everything. I went and I ran different scenarios of different ways of looking at the budget and stuff. And I kept coming up with the same thing, to me, the most reasonable outcome that would best suit the county and keep the county functioning on all wheels was if we stayed with the budget review committee numbers. And I'm not quite sure it was like a 4% or 4.2%. And what I would like to do with that in mind, using that column of the review committee's recommendations as they are, open it up to discussion with the rest of the board. Harry?
Okay, I've listened to a lot of people that work here. In full disclosure, I want to mention that I have friends and family that work all over the place up here. And I'm not going to give them any special privileges. I'm just going to do my job. I got 7 things here that people have told me that they're concerned with. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring each of those 7 things up for discussion. And if we come to an agreement, it may or may not be permanent. It may be temporary. When we get to the end, we'll see what the taxes are up and the spending are up. And we'll decide if we need to go back and readjust these things. So I'm going to take them one at a time, and I'd like to get discussion from the Budget Review Committee. The first thing that's on the list, on my list, is the maintenance department. It's number 14900. It's the garage with the boxes. It's a $30,000 expense. And I've done a little bit of research, and I really think that can be done considerably less than that. The things I was looking at had the 2 metal containers and a metal roof, and the cost was like 20 grand instead of 30. So I'd like to open that up for discussion. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about on the container garage?
So I did have a conversation with the sheriff in regards to the garage. You know, they just had a lot of upgrades done to their vehicles and such for special ops and SWAT and all that stuff. They did want to keep it high, you know, out of the weather, out of the elements, because of all the upgrades they had done on it. But it is something he could deal with right this minute, not having it. Might have to kick it to next year. He would like to eventually have that, but he has an arrangement right now to kind of keep them dry, so that wouldn't be that big of a deal at this moment, in my opinion.
And I would give him the time to check in on these,
The course.
Metal roofs.
Speaking of, yeah.
I don't know procedurally, if, I'm supposed to see if he has any comments or we just,
Representative Sheriff just walked in. Sure, yeah.
so
If you have a question to the.
I don't have a
sheriff,
question.
Then let's continue our discussion as we, at the moment.
Does anybody else got anything to say about the garage? Like I said, I think I can help find the two containers and a metal roof for like $20,000, but I don't think that we should be doing it right now. I think that that takes more research. And I'd be more than willing to work with the sheriff to try to see if we can do that for the next time around. So is there any other discussion? If not, I'm gonna make a motion to zero out that line item.
Do we have consensus? To zero out that line item?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, consensus. We're not voting.
You want to drop it from 30 to 0 or 20 to 0? Which one was it?
Well, I think it's gonna be from 30 to 0 because that's what's on the line item, but I think that we can get it to 20 next term, next time around.
I just find it tough to think that they would put that in there if there wasn't a need for it. I understand. I'm just saying, I hate to see the maintenance of new vehicles and stuff suffer because of that. And I think I'd rather maybe, as much as I want to speed this meeting along, I'd rather either look to the commissioner or to the sheriff to say, does that work? Does that work zeroing out that for the?
Yes, I mean, the building itself is something that the county should look at and investing in as we continue to invest in our vehicles. But at the same time, I also agree that I understand the budget and everything else is the way that it is and that there needs to be some cuts. So, you know, we've gone 20 years without that building. We can most certainly go another year without it if
That's all I
necessary.
want to hear.
But don't think that I won't be back before you next year asking for the same thing.
But that's fine. No, I appreciate that, Sheriff. I just,
With a steel roof.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
So we're not gonna vote on that. We don't need the motions or seconds.
We got
So
a
it's
consensus.
a consensus. So we're gonna put that in there at least temporarily as a zero on that line item. Oh, let's see here. Another thing that I really don't necessarily have an opinion on at this point, but I've heard a lot of grumblings about restorative justice. There's some people want to leave it flat. Some people want to zero out the whole department. And what I want to do is have a discussion here and see how the rest of you guys feel about this and see if you, you know, my opinion of it is it's top heavy economically. We have one chief and two part-time Indians. And that makes it top heavy economically, in my opinion. You know, and I think that there's probably overlap. I think that some or all of the things that are done in that department could be done either with the jail, with the schools, or with proper parenting. That's my opinion. I get shot for that, but that's all right.
did you say proper parenting?
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
Well, I wish we could control that.
Well,
What does that cost?
Put it in the budget. We'll do that.
I'll see if I can get that. in
Parenting
HQ2.
101.
You know, that's in the eye of the beholder, obviously. So that's my take on it. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the pros and cons will eliminating the money for that department? Do you know what the pros and cons? Is it mandated or?
It's not mandated, but I think you could either hear from a commissioner or from the director who runs the department and probably very much tell you what the pros are and if there are cons.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Dave, please.
Thank you. Sorry. So full disclosure, the majority of the commissioners did recommend an increase in restorative justice budget as Director McFadden had requested 2 additional full-time positions. I was the lone dissenting vote, not so much on policy, but because on economics, knowing that this would be an especially austere budget cycle here in the county and certainly in Concord, I didn't feel the timing was right to make that request. I do, however, representing the Board of Commissioners today, recommend the continuation of restorative justice at its 2024 budget level. I also had a conversation with Judge Elizabeth Leonard, assessing the importance and validity of the program. And she made a very convincing case to me that restorative justice has a mitigating influence on bad behavior in the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Director McFadden is here as well, if anyone would like to, if the chair and the representatives would like to hear from him.
I would.
Do you have anything to add?
Well, no one here that's present in this room, representing the delegation has ever spoken to me other than Representative St. Clair about the merits of the program. And in fact, back in January, I was ordered by Representative Terry to write a research paper comparing pros and cons of restorative justice, both here locally and nationally. And that was written and emailed, and a very large packet was sent to each of you that outlined so much documentation that outlined exactly what the program does, what our recidivism rates have been. We're accredited on the juvenile level. 67% of the kids that go through our program have no chargeable offenses within 5 years of completion of the program. We had similar results.
I'm sorry, but within 5 years, does the study go past the 5 years?
No, well, because once they turn 18, we can't track them.
All right.
So, and that tracking is done through the administrative office of the courts, through the New Hampshire Juvenile Diversion Network. And they report back to us every year as part of that accreditation. So I don't know which kid repeated offended or which kid didn't. I just get that 67% as our success rate. So that's 2 out of 3 kids that have no further chargeable offenses up until age 18 or at the 1, 3, and 5 year mark. Similarly, at the adult level, up until about 2 or 3 years ago, when they changed the rules for NCIC and our ability to check criminal records for arrests after completion, we had a 77% completion or no recidivism at the 1, 3, and 5 year mark for adults. So 3 out of 4 adults were not getting arrested. We're not going back to court. We're not victimizing the community. We're not utilizing or draining law enforcement resources, not adding to the court dockets, and most importantly, not sitting in jail. Because as my paper to all of you indicated, when an individual goes to jail, very few of them they get some treatment while they're in, but when they're out, there's no aftercare, there's no follow-up, and only about 2% remain sober after sentencing and completing that sentence. They go back to their addiction, they go back to committing crimes. And as my paper also indicated, statistics from the United States Department of Justice shows about 98% of all crime is drug or alcohol related, meaning that they are committing their crimes to further their addiction, or they're committing their crimes while they're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Very few of those inmates receive any type of services when they go into the jail. And oftentimes, jail is actually college for criminals, because They're not very good going in and they get better coming out because high risk and high need people always pull low and medium need risk and people up. It never goes the other way. So when you eliminate a program like restorative justice, you essentially are costing the taxpayer money. We are the lowest line item for a department in this county. We don't even top $200,000. But yet, if we keep 3 out of 4 people out of jail, and you look at what kind of a cost savings that is per inmate, per day, per year, that's a hell of a lot more money than what it costs to fund my program.
So I'd like to know if there are restorative justice in the other 9 counties in the state, or how many of them have.
So Coos County is the only county that does not have a juvenile program. They are currently in the process of having it. All 10 counties will have an accredited juvenile program. They'll make number 20 for the state for juveniles. Adult-wise, Cheshire is in, or no, Sullivan is in the process of starting an adult diversion. I've been working with their director. Cheshire has adult diversion. Hillsborough has adult diversion. Merrimack has adult diversion. And Belknap has adult diversion. I'm not sure about Rockingham, Stratford, or Carroll.
I understand that there's about a dozen drug and rehab places in Belknap County that are already out there. This is said that most of these people with drug and alcohol problems. If there's a dozen other places that are doing the same thing. And then another thing that I was wondering is what percentage of those that don't go to jail within the next 5 years would have straightened out by themselves? I was kind of a little funny when I was young, and I woke up in the Crowbar Hotel one morning, and room service sucked, and I realized that really wasn't the place for me, and I had no rehab, no anything, but I didn't go back there. So I'm wondering if you could give me some kind of a percentage that you think would have just straightened out on their own, as opposed to taking credit for all of them.
That's a question that I can't answer. There's no way to know that.
I just wanted to put that out there that, you know, sometimes it doesn't take that, and that there are a whole bunch of other places. And I'm not necessarily against you, so don't get me wrong. I want discussion so that the majority here can figure out, I'm not against you. I just want to discuss the issues, the money part.
So I know we discussed it in the last meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, my question is, maybe you know the answer, these other programs, is there a charge to go to those, and do you guys charge?
Yes.
You do charge?
Yes. So for the adult program, it's $400 for a misdemeanor, $500 for a felony. However, sometimes those fees are waived by the court based on the financial affidavit that the individual files with the court, because if they're indigent and that's their only reason for not taking a diversion, the court will waive that fee and we'll send them to
So
us.
do they have that opportunity at these other places for the court to waive their fees there?
I don't know if they do that or not. I couldn't honestly answer that for sure. I've never asked the other program directors that question.
Can I just ask a question of Mike or anyone who knows, but do any of those, like the Kathy Ireland Center or any of the other treatment centers, are they diversion? Are they able to divert people from court? They
No.
don't do what you do.
They
Is
do
that
not do
true?
what we do.
Okay, thank you.
They simply provide substance use counseling services. They don't,
Which is kind of what you do.
no, that is not what we do. The essential goal of our program is to focus on sobriety, education, and employment. They don't have the ability to do that.
Right.
Obviously, the first step when someone comes to, and not everybody who comes to our program is obviously alcohol or drug addicted. The majority are, but not all. So our focus on our program is on sobriety, education, and employment. So obviously, first step is sobriety, get them sober. Many of the people that come to us are lacking in education. They don't have a high school diploma. We'll get them to Laconia Adult Ed and go through the Laconia Academy to obtain a Laconia High School diploma, or through the GED program where they at least now have a foundation that they could then go to trade school, or they can at least function in the workforce and go out and make a wage, contribute to society by paying taxes, buying a house, living the American dream, and then having a future, right? So like, those are not things that when you go to Kathy Island or you go to sobriety centers of New Hampshire that is offered to you. They are strictly mental health, substance use, counseling services. We provide that other stuff. They also can, if they're court ordered there, they're going there with a criminal conviction. And it's not voluntary. And in order to beat addiction, the person has got to, it's got to be something that they want. They have to have a vested interest in it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If you're court ordered and I tell you, you will do this, yeah, I'll do it because I don't want to go to jail. But then when I walk away from it, because I have no vested interest in it, I just go back to the old ways. I go back to doing the old things.
I didn't, but some do,
Where-
most do.
But whereas when they come to us, it's voluntary. They're at that point where they're like, many, and I'll use an example, many kids who come into our program, juveniles, if they were to have to go through juvenile court and get a delinquency petition for drinking or marijuana use or something like that, when it comes time to go in, if they want to go in the military, guess what? They're not going. Not going. They want to go to college. They got to answer on their FAFSA. Have they ever been arrested for any marijuana? Still against the law federally. Probably not going to get federal funding. So it has a really negative impact. By coming to diversion, they never go to court. They don't get a delinquency, and they can honestly say, no, I've never been convicted of those things, and they can have a future and not be pushed down and not allowed to have a future because of a stupid mistake at party.
Mr. Chair,
Julie,
thank you. Thanks for taking my question, but I don't think anybody is in doubt that the program does good things. That's not what I guess we're here to do, but how to manage it. Is it, if I could get some information, it looks like a lot of these other counties, this program is run by family division, which is, looks like it's part of the judicial branch. Is that your understanding? That's what I'm looking at.
So, for instance, Merrimack County has a separate juvenile, they have a standalone juvenile program with a director and staff. Merrimack County has an adult version with a director and staff, full and part-time. How they word it, we
Well,
used to
not
be,
worded, but who funds it is. what
the
I'm
county
getting at.
taxpayer funds it, and then on the
Yeah.
juvenile program, we get some grant funding back through the Administrative Office of Courts through the New Hampshire Juvenile Diversion Network, which ultimately gets grant funding from the Executive Council, which ultimately pulls from juvenile justice reform from the federal government.
Now, I know up in Plymouth, they have the restorative justice was kind of part of the KD program.
Their Katie program, which is
And it
kind
was
of a
like
private.
one person like running it. Yeah, so there's different ways of doing it,
But they only serve the greater Plymouth area, they don't serve all of Grafton County.
right? I mean, and here's another thing that I wonder about is the resource officers in the schools that we never used to have. Are we cutting them out of this whole process when they could be part of the process? I mean, the students could be.
The SROs are the ones that refer the students to us.
Okay, well, maybe just because you're here and we know you'll take the case. I don't know.
Because it's an alternative to filing a delinquency petition and sending it to school. Or
At
sending
the
it
end of
to
the
court,
day, we
rather.
do have to consider the money. That's the problem. We have to consider cuts, and unfortunately, this is the problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't, who wants to be Scrooge?
Mike, so I know we discussed the last meeting. The majority of what we're dealing with is alcohol, vaping, marijuana. For the most part,
For
for
juveniles,
juveniles.
yes.
So
And
I
fights.
mean, and fights. So my only thing is, we all went to high school.
Yeah.
Who didn't have a drink in high school? Who didn't do what they did? I mean, we're putting these kids, but then again, there's a criminal aspect of it as well now, right? It's not like when we were growing up where they they tell your parents and your parents will be like, don't do it again, and yeah. So now we're adding the criminal aspect to it, but the majority of the juvenile stuff is basically minor stuff. But
Yeah, I don't see why we're sending kids out of county for that.
Well, like I said, in three places it should be taken care of. It is the jail, the school, and the parents. That's,
Yeah, their records get expunged at 18, anyway, so.
Can you turn down clients or patients, like something as minor as vaping or something
If
as
we
small?
do, after intake, if a client is determined to not be appropriate, for instance, they're a violent offender, they're a sex offender, then they are returned, they're not accepted into the diversion program, and they're returned back to court, or back to the prosecutor for, whatever action they deem appropriate.
How much of your budget would be dedicated just to like vaping, something as similar as small as that?
Well, the issue with vaping right now is, one, it's illegal if you're under 21 and they get brought to court as an adult and have to pay a fine if they're over 16. Two, the biggest issue that we have with vaping in high school is its THC. It's no longer just nicotine. The majority of the kids that get sent to us in diversion are for vaping, are consuming THC. And a lot of the problems that you're raising, that you're talking about, well, back when I was a kid, marijuana was seeds and stems and green leafy matter that looked like stuff we mow on our lawn.
Yeah.
Today, the stuff that these kids are doing is 35% and greater. And there was just an article that was written in Psychology Today about the dangers of high percentage THC and psychosis and violence and psychiatric other issues that are coming as a result of that. And when we're talking about vaping THC, we're talking about stuff that's 65 to 85, 90% THC, not the 7% Panama Red they had when we were in high school. Sorry, it's a different world. And the laws are different. The laws are different.
You were just talking about all those dangers. All I could think of was alcohol, but that's not my question. Commissioner Spanos has said that he would recommend flatlining your budget for this year as it was from last year. What do you think about that? Is that doable for you, or?
As to quote Commissioner Spanos, I've always made do with less every year since this department has been dying a slow death of 1,000 paper cuts since 2019. Every year I've sustained cut after cut after cut after cut. And I've always made do, and I will make do with whatever I'll figure it out one way or another. I'll make it work. I'm one of the few, and I think Commissioner Spanos will tell you this. I don't come in, when I offer my budget to you, I give you what I think it's actually going to cost me to run this department. I do not do the old, I've got a car worth $5,000 and I'm going to put it on the side of the road and ask for $7. And when someone comes by and says, I'll give you $6, they think they got a great deal. And I walked away with $1,000 more than what it's worth. I don't do that. I give you honest budgeting of what it's going to cost me. And if you look for the past 3 or 4 years, I have only increased my spending based on the rates of inflation. And I've made that very clear every time I've sat in front of the commissioners or whether I've sat in front of this board as the executive committee, that this is how I came up with the rate of inflation, looking at what the Office of Management and Budget in Washington estimated for the inflation rate, for CPI, Consumer Price Index, and average them together. And that's what I can, and that's what I did again this year. With the exception of asking to make my 2 staff members full-time because of being moved to a smaller workspace and having not had a third case manager's position be filled, which was ultimately permanently cut at this budget. And utilizing interns and working relationships with Plymouth State University, New Hampshire Technical Institute, and having interns fill in for that role. Consequently, as a result of newspaper articles and things, I don't have an intern this time. I usually have an intern from January to May. The intern that was supposed to come here isn't coming because of a headline in the paper that said restorative justice first on the chopping block. in the January Daily Sun. As a student, I would have done the same thing because I'm expected, I want to graduate in May. But I got a program that's gonna get cut and I'm now gonna not graduate because I can't do my required internship. So I don't have that student now. And I've always been able to fill the gap by utilizing that and making whatever I was fortunate enough to get work. I've never come back and asked for anything more. I've always taken what this committee has given me and made it work. And to answer your question, if that's what the committee decides to do, then yes, I will make that work. And I do that with the full cooperation of the commissioners. The Board of Commissioners have been extremely supportive of me and they help me make that work. So it's not just me, it's them as well.
Fine.
What is the percentage of adults and children in the group? Because I know you guys also do adults as well, which they should be kind of paying their own way, in my opinion, but.
Adults are probably 2/3 and children, juveniles,
So 1/3 of you programs.
but that's as I currently think about what my active case numbers are. Juveniles come through the program and cycle through much quicker. Because we have time limitations. If there is a court filing, we have 180-day limitations that we have to meet.
So, in my view, I think the juvenile is a complete necessity for the kids. I don't know why adults are going through this program as well.
I don't know either.
Juveniles, if a kid gets caught vaping or something, I don't think they should be prosecuted or thrown in jail or
Maybe
pay
some-
fines.
Maybe some adults are actually still juveniles.
We know that, yeah.
So when you think of the majority of the adults in our program are less than 30, they're under 30. And I'll give you an example. I have a young man in my program right now who is up on the state school property in an area he shouldn't have been. Got arrested for criminal trespass. He's in the process to be a police officer. If he gets convicted, he's not a police officer. That's why we have the adult program.
And if he's going to be a law enforcement officer and he's committing a crime, is that the
Did
best?
you ever go somewhere as a young man and drink when you weren't supposed to be drinking?
I plead the fifth.
So why should he be treated differently?
But he's an adult.
So we,
So I've got a statement that I'd like to make. It's that headline that you mentioned.
Mhm.
I think that was a bad choice of headlines. I don't know who came up with that, how they came up with that, but it had absolutely nothing to do with this delegation.
I'm just saying that
But that, I don't,
I'm looking at it right now.
and the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, if you could think of any other way, and I doubt that you can, because I've racked my brain trying to figure out how to make that department less top heavy. Like when I said, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I thought I shut that off. You know, with one boss and two part-time employees, that makes it financially top heavy just by definition. Can you think of anything? Maybe she can.
I just have a thought about that because I've heard that too. And so by top heavy, what I'm thinking is the director, if someone's got to supervise, there's two case managers and there's a director who I believe also manages caseload. And so someone needs to simply be in charge of this program, who has the education and knowledge about the program to direct the two case managers. So I just don't know how that would operate if nobody's in charge.
Well, that brings back the option of zeroing out the,
Just not offering the service.
I don't, that's the other side of the coin that you just flipped, in my opinion.
So I'm gonna say on my side of things, I agree with Commissioner Spanos and we just level funded from 2024. That's my opinion on this.
I think,
Now, if I may ask, when you say level fund, or you say level fund to actual or level fund to 24 budget? There's a difference.
What's the difference?
There is a difference.
what is the,
There's a big difference.
I would say
It's $30,000.
I want to look at to 24 budget. because there are some things that are gonna increase naturally. And there's a little bit of wiggle room within that if you do it to budget and not to actual.
Correct.
And that way, it'll allow them to have a little bit of breathing room within that. And
That's where I'm at.
that would be my thought.
So you're talking about
If
hundred
that's-
74,674.
And what was this proposed budget?
174,674 was last year's budget.
What is?
What was this, what is?
181,658.
We'll say $11,000 roughly.
Was the payout
Is that gonna?
exactly the same as the budgeted amount?
No,
Then I'd
the
cut off
actual
any
spent?
gaps.
Yes,
was 30,000 less than that.
so you want to keep it to where
Oh,
we
sorry,
budgeted,
sorry.
not to where he
I think we
spent?
should
Give him the
keep
same
that-
budget as
that-
last year.
That
Alright.
30,000 as a cushion.
Wait a minute, the 30,000, A, it would never have been a cushion. And B, it's the wrong number I gave you, so the actual for 2024 was 162,581.
Right.
And he
So that's
would,
12,000, approximately about 12,000. That would be the difference. So
right, so you'd be shorting him 20,000. He needs 181, which is virtually all payroll costs. And so, you know, yes, the director's exactly right. Whatever number you put in there, I think the commissioners will make sure that the services are offered to the public because it matters. They should have this service. So the less you cut it, the better.
I just know a lot of places don't have an adult diversion program. That's why I was a little focused on that. I understand for the children, but if you're a 50-something-year-old man, you shouldn't.
But a lot of them are 20,
This one.
you know, that's the problem. They're
Each
the
of y'all
adults,
is adult,
right.
so
I don't have.
I guess if I had a confusion point, it was,
I
the
think-
comment was made
the
that
actual-
Nathan is 21,
Huh?
but we're calling the adult
And-
20.
and
So I guess I'm confused there between the two.
No, it's because of state
I
guys.
started in
Yeah.
last year, not this year.
I'm sorry.
Talk to the state.
Anyway,
I think if you.
so the question to be is, there's three numbers in play. You want to keep it the same as what we recommended at 181,658? Or do you want to use as what was recommended? We need to clarify. You want to use actual 24 or budgeted 24?
Keep it level funded
Actual,
budget. What the actual,
I think actual expenditures, that's my opinion.
I would go with, I mean, personally, I would go with the budget, but the budget.
I myself would go with the budgeted number because there's always gonna be a bump in the road
Correct.
and you'll have a little bit more cushion. You're not talking,
Yeah, remember there's inflation
That-
involved.
You're talking 19 grand? Oh, 19, actually.
Right, so you're 2 to 2 now.
Yeah, so it's up to you two.
So the actual is what he was really spent, correct?
that's correct.
I think we should stick with actual.
Okay,
I'm with the budget.
So
That is 3 and 3.
Still.
We could split the difference and
Yeah,
then bring it to the full
you
committee.
wanna split it?
No?
I don't either, but you
I
gotta do
don't want to
something.
get caught.
Yeah, we'll put a number in there.
we can just leave it as it is and let it go to the committee.
That's it.
Let it go to the delegation.
That's what you wanna do, we'll do that?
Yeah, come to,
So
Okay.
then this discussion can be played out with 17 delegates, maybe 18 if they show up. But-
and then we can debate the matter.
All right, so at the moment, we're gonna leave it at 181,658.
Want something else? Yeah, Yeah, I want to cause more trouble. Okay, we got some other things here. Outside agencies. Um,
Do one at a time.
yeah, one at a
Wanna talk
time,
about all?
definitely. I got a list here, the one first on my list is, line 14,610. It's UNH.
Now, I'd like to, just for conversation purposes, make a motion to zero out the line. Discuss, zeroing that out, and then we'll come up to a number
But just as,
just to start the conversation,
just to start the conversation, I'll second
Yeah.
the motion.
like,
All right, we'll open it to discussion.
it's like Belknap County is 30% of UNH's budget, total budget. Out of all the counties. 10 counties, so. Like we got 3 times higher than
Mr. Chair,
we should.
so only communities that what it is.
Yes,
Can I
please.
just clarify that? So, these numbers on this handout. I'm John Lindblom. I am County Office Administrator here in the UNH Extension Office for Belknap County. And I distributed this handout here, and I recognize that some of the numbers are a little bit confusing, so I wanted to offer a bit of interpretation for that. So the 30% versus 70%, that refers to of our operating budget that we have in the Belknap County Field Office, where our funds are coming from. So 70% of funds come from the UNH side of things, which encompasses federal funds, state funds, and other university funds. 30% is then from the county. So that's what that breakdown means. One important thing to keep in mind is that this year, as I'm sure you all know from reading the news, we are getting pinched from every direction at UNH, from federal, from state, from the university. If there's ever been a year in which county funding is critical to support what we're able to offer to county residents, I think this is the year. Happy to answer any other questions too. I can stay or.
Please.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's up from, it was 165,000, and
That's correct.
unfortunately, I know everybody's getting pinched and taxpayers also getting pinched, unfortunately. So we have, immediate life safety issues to think about first. So I'm thinking, do people want to go below 165,000?
Do you have any
There's quite
ideas?
a number of staff.
Board?
I mean, my opinion, I would say, I would level fund it from last year's numbers. If you guys want to make cuts to that's what I would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
Is it the increase inflationary or the salary increases?
Well, the 165, what they're requesting is 183, but the review committee had level funded it at 165. And that's been approved. I'm
No,
sorry.
the review committee has left it at 183,810. None of the outside agencies were changed.
May I respond to that? Thank you. So we got to that number of 183 from really recognizing that we have been level funded or have experienced cuts from our requests for the past 5 years. And if we were to have received an increase based on just inflation alone from that 25 years ago, we'd be much closer to 200,000 right now. So it's really a matter of keeping up with salaries, from benefits. Insurance costs have really gone up a lot. That's a big thing. Mileage, just driving, gas, supplies, you name it. Everything that I'm sure we all experience, we're feeling from our end as well. And another important thing to note is we're really excited right now to be fully staffed in our office with a great crew. And in past years, we've had a little bit of wiggle room in our budget that's helped get by despite not having increases, because we've had some months of not having somebody in certain roles. Helps out in just little ways, you know, with covering expenses for supplies and that sort of thing. But this year, we are fully staffed and that's great, but it does mean that we really have to scrutinize every aspect of our budget. And we felt it was reasonable and prudent to ask for a moderate request of increase.
Do you think you'd lose staff if you don't get the increase?
I think, you know, like any job, I think salary and that sort of perception of potential for growth is a big thing people take into consideration. We've been lucky in that some of the people on our staff who we have lost from our office have gone on to other roles at Extension. So they like Extension, but there have been opportunities that have been able to pay more than what we have in our county office. So that does factor in. Since we're part of a university system, it's not just within our office's own control what salary is necessarily. We're part of a larger review structure, but I would say certainly, at least in indirect ways, perception of salary potential does factor into employee satisfaction.
Now, if we were to level fund you, I know you're requesting more. Would that have a drastic input on your drastic problem with your
Yeah.
functionality? I'm drawing it like I'm like social. Would that be detrimental to you guys?
Thank you for asking. And I think, you know, we've gotten by at that number or even slightly less for the past 5 years, as you all can see. I think that question becomes increasingly difficult for me to ask, given the political climate we're in right now with a lot of uncertainty. As an example of what we're kind of going through internally, I've spent a good amount of time recently working on a USDA grant that would have brought up to $50,000 towards programming that we would have here in the county. That program is no longer available. It's being reviewed. So that, you know, is out of the question. There's a lot of supplemental funding sources that are big question marks for us right now. So again, it comes back to that notion of whatever we have that we know we can count on from the county is just, it's invaluable type of support for us at this time.
You asked for 1%,
183.
188.
Yeah, 183, 810.
I'd be okay with 170 right now. That's just my opinion.
170?
I got a couple of questions. Is there anything else that the county is doing for the UNH extension, other than the funding here? Is there anything else that we as a county, like possibly free rent?
No other, we do receive as part of our agreement through our MOU with the county, we do receive office space from the county. So that is part of it. And that's consistent with how every county to my knowledge, at least every office that I visited across Extension in the different counties operates.
I was also told that at one point you was zeroed out in Belknap County.
Not in the years that I can speak to, that hasn't happened. We did
Okay.
experience a budget cut in 2022.
You started with them in 2022, is that what you just said?
We had requested,
No, you said as long as you could remember,
I have past 5 years data on hand.
so you only know the last 5 years, so it may have been zeroed out at some point prior to that.
Yeah, and I have actually requested complete data to look back more historically than what I have, but I haven't received that information yet, but would be happy to pass it.
You know, we have to, you could have the best thing since sliced bread. We have to make sure that our taxpayers can pay it. So it's a fine line that we're here to walk. If we were to cut you, it's not because we don't think you're doing a good job. It's because we think that the taxpayers need a break. You mentioned that you guys need a break. Taxpayers need a break too. You want to say something to me?
Everything is not free. So the taxpayers, while they may not want to pay for stuff, also appreciate the services that outside agencies bring, one way or the other. So I understand what you're saying, Harry, but
Not all the taxpayers go to college.
well, I don't know that,
That's-
what they're doing is for college students. And if we have to have her explain again, I hope not. But if they have to explain again, then maybe we should just push this off to the committee and the full delegation, I correct myself. And maybe she can educate everybody again as to what they do, if there's any confusion with everybody. But my point is that you're gonna say this a lot, and we're gonna hear it at the full delegation meeting about the taxpayers.
I am.
But
I represent them.
again, these are services that the taxpayers all benefit from, and many come to expect, whether it's the nursing home, the county sheriff's department, whoever. Nothing is free.
Wants and needs, Charlie, Mr. Singh.
Well, that's where we come down.
Wants and needs. There's some people, they consider this maybe, some people need to pay for dinner for their taxes so they don't lose their house. There are those. Well, you might
I
not be one of
remember
them.
a former delegate saying that because of gun stock, he was eating canned beans. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
No, I
His
don't.
meal, well, Peter does because he smiled. So he had canned beans for dinner every night at his house because of gun stock's budget. So I remember, I know, it's not, you remember.
No, I was just thinking, I can't be.
Okay, anyway, I digress.
We don't have anything to do with guns.
Representative.
I know how important it is to keep staff and how much it costs when you lose good staffing. Could you make do with just a 3% inflationary increase from the 165 and around, I think, 171?
I mean, every bit of increase from last year would be put to excellent use and would be much appreciated.
Okay, 171.
We have to level fund. 165.
So.
So who left me?
Oh, you're not really.
Yeah, I think it's 3-3.
voting well.
I think it's 3-3.
Might as well. Just how the rest of the day is gonna go.
I don't know, it's just, maybe.
Hi.
So I guess we're gonna bring
One
that,
sixty-five. Level funding that this round.
Yeah,
165, that's where I'm
all
at.
right.
So
Fine.
it's still 3-3. So it doesn't,
So the full
Right.
Well,
delegation.
no, you're 165.
I'm 165. Charlie's 171.
He's 171, he's 171.
Oh,
It's 3-3. So just let the delegation.
$6,000. Let's do the delegation.
All right, so it's gonna stay at 183, 810. And okay,
Okay, so, there, is it back to me, Mr. Chair?
floor is yours, sir.
Okay, line item 14660. Lakes Region Mental Health. They're requesting $32,000. I think that's level funded from last year. I'm not sure. But, I was told that there are like 12 other mental health organizations in Belknap County and approximately the same number of drug and alcohol rehab places, which is similar to mental health. It's also been brought to my attention that the people, the three top people, their compensation is almost $900,000 a year for those top three people. Personally, I don't think they need our help. They can pay them 900 grand. And not only that, it's picking winners and losers. We're not helping any of the others. They may not be nonprofits, but I'm not sure that when you pay the top three people $900,000, that's a nonprofit either. I make him mad?
I've seen a lot of nonprofits that
What's
give
that?
directors and personnel overinflated salaries, and I think it goes against everything a nonprofit stands for.
I don't think they're nonprofit.
So what do you recommend?
I recommend zeroing that out.
Okay. So
Anybody
it's
got
open
anything?
for discussion.
Yeah, it's open for discussion. Anybody want to say anything about that?
Well,
The lady in the back, I think does.
I would, like to say, whatever we've got out there, could be 50 organizations, whatever we got, not doing enough. And because we have the issues on the streets, Harry. We have people out there that need help. I don't think they're getting it. I don't know whose fault that is, but we certainly need a lot of attention to people that have issues.
So is that going to be a motion to give all of these other 24 organizations $32,000 apiece too?
Just talking about the one we're talking about.
Oh, well, that's picking winners and losers.
Well, again, you just mentioned about nonprofit, but that's my commentary on it, but somebody had their hand back up, yes.
You got
Representative.
money.
Again,
Yeah, I'd like to hear what she'd like to say, and then I'll make.
Yes,
Wanted to correct some of the numbers that were mentioned.
please come up here so you can be heard.
Want to correct some of those numbers that were mentioned. $900,000 for people.
I'm immensely curious where that came from, because
I got that down in Concord. At the nonprofit, I can't think of the right name of the place, but nonprofit, that number came from pay as well as benefits.
I'm not sure about that 900, because I know the salaries, and I can assure you there's no three people combined that make $900,000.
I think a report y'all filed with the state.
Yeah, that's where I
on
got
the
it.
website,
What's-
and that indicated.
That would be,
That
that would
there
include,
was 3, if not 4, making $1.2 million. So it is on your own website.
that would be the leadership, and it would include all fringe benefits, which,
Right.
That's what I
and if you
said,
compared,
But there's more than
compensation.
3, and there's
Yeah.
more than,
if you compared those salaries to other nonprofits even, or it's a low figure that the salaries are, that make up that number. In any case, you also compared our services to other centers that aren't necessarily nonprofits. And I just want to remind you that we provide services to roughly 70% or greater people who qualify for Medicaid, and that we provided over $900,000 in charity care last year. That represented a 184% increase from the prior year. And just as some others have mentioned, that 32,000 being dependable right now, a dependable source of income. And we consider ourselves fortunate to have it, because we didn't have it, you can see, in 2022. Means a lot right now. The money that we can, and support that we can be certain of.
Well, I'm not sure that there's anything that you could possibly say that would make me think that you needed $32,000 from the state when you're paying your top people $900,000 a year. No offense. I don't mean any offense. I don't want to start an argument or anything else, but me personally, if you're paying them $900,000, I'm good.
How many employees are on your executive or leadership level? You seem to be contesting that high dollar amount.
so we have, there's 7 people on our executive leadership. One of them is a medical director. And the rest are administrative. And then the next level would be our management team. And there's about 25 of those folks. And they also, some of them have caseloads. They're directors of various programs.
Providing services as well.
Yes.
How many employees make over 200,000? Full benefits.
2.
That's the full compensation package.
They're doctors. And we need them, so,
To prescribe medication.
well, we need,
Provide
to
service.
sign treatment plans, it's mandated by the state, so.
Right.
We are required to pay market, so if we don't have them, we can't provide the services. We've actually done a needs want analysis. I've started almost 9 years ago. And at that time, we had a lot of MDs, for instance, that were working at the center. And we did an analysis to say, can we have APRNs, which are half the cost, do the prescribing? So we have culled it down to the bare minimum of MD costs that we can afford to operate with. If we take those away, then we're not able to provide the services. And that is to be in alignment with insurance carriers like Medicaid and Medicare, who require these treatment plans signed.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I request a 5-minute recess
Yes,
for us to talk?
we're gonna take a break for 5 minutes.
We're gonna have like a caucus.
Yeah, well,
You're out.
we'll leave. Yeah, we'll leave.
That's some planning, Charlie.
It's worse than 21 cents.
Oh, but you can do a caucus.
Hey, Steve, I was looking $20 if you let Matt take 5 minutes. Right now. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
want to come in
All right. We're all here.
No, somebody's missing. Oh, there isn't.
No, we're here.
It looked right at me and
All
said
right,
somebody's
we're gonna
missing.
call this back
Missing
to order.
some.
Any further discussion?
I just want to make a motion.
I just want to make a comment. I'm looking at the salaries here of the members. Which region mental health, they are a nonprofit and they're paying their executive director almost $200,000 a year.
Not counting benefits.
Like, they have two other employees that both of them combined is over $600,000. I sit on the board of directors of nonprofits and I think those salaries are insane.
Are those doctors?
Two of them are doctors, so yes, I understand that directive, I do, but for an executive director to get almost $200,000 a year.
I just want to point out that they're doctors.
Correct.
If a doctor wants to get doctor's pay, they ought to be a doctor, a hospital or something, not a nonprofit. You're gonna make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to cut the 32,000 in half.
16.
I'll go with 16, I guess. Just to get it done.
So we've got a consensus on that, right?
Mike?
I'm gonna abstain from this.
What abstain?
You're abstaining, Mike?
I'm abstaining.
Somebody's starting something, because he'll be doing that.
Are you going around the room? or you just-
Yes. Three.
Yes,
Yes, 16.
yes.
Sure. No. One abstain, one that, and I'm gonna say 16. So consensus is 16.
You know, chair.
The next, I'm waiting for you.
Oh, I'm waiting for him to tell me to go ahead.
Next,
I got the next thing on my list of things to discuss is CASA. What I'd like to say about CASA is that the last term was the first time that they got any money from us. They seem to have gotten along fine prior to that. They get money from a lot of other places. I believe the state for one. I'd like to zero that out. Any discussion on that?
any discussion on that?
Before we decide, I'd like to hear. She just raised her hand.
Yes.
Hello, name's Tara, I'm with CASA of New Hampshire. I'm very much appreciative for being in the budget last year for the first time. We were able to stay level with the number of refused cases. In fiscal year 23, before Belknap County funding, we had to refuse 16 children. That means 16 children did not have a dedicated advocate in courts. They were assigned a paid guardian ad litem, which the state has to pay for and does trickle down to the counties and the taxpayers at the end of the year. These paid GALs do not see the children every month like our volunteers do. They don't know the best interest of the child because they don't have an idea of what the kid is doing, what they need, how they're thriving with the services and support that they're getting once they've been identified as an abuse or neglect case. This year, we were able to keep it the same. We hate turning down any children, but with funding, we did receive more cases this year from Belknap County, and we were able to keep it the same. So even though we still had to refuse 16 children, you were still also able to take more cases because of the funding. Like many nonprofits here, we have seen a very drastic cut in federal funding. VOCA funding in specific, which is the Victims of Crimes Act. Many nonprofits that serve, that do services along the line. We're the only nonprofit that does this, but other, the CAC and the YDC, they receive VOCA funding. And because VOCA funding is pretty much gone, we are down in our budget 300,000. And without county funding, we have to make it up somehow. And the county funding that we receive is just less that we have to pull from the donors. People within Belknap County themselves individually who want to give to CASA. Yes.
You mentioned you had to refuse 16 children.
Yes.
What happens to them after that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, once we refuse a case, it's state property at that point. We don't get the option of getting it back. So the kids are given, the case is assigned a paid guardian ad litem. The state pays for this guardian ad litem. It costs the state at least $120 per hour, plus the cost of travel. And the paid GALs are only required to put eyes on the kids of each of their cases once. Not once a month or anything like that, just once. Yes.
So they still get represented. It's not like they're just dismissed.
They're not dismissed, no. But if you only meet with your lawyer once, how are they going to advocate for you in court? Yes.
Yes, Mike.
So my concern is, like Representative Green said, you guys got by without us for how many years? I don't think the $7,500 is gonna make a break. CASA.
We got by with VOCA funding without you guys, and now we don't have VOCA funding and we don't have you guys. So then there's going to be more refused cases from Belknap County.
Where else do you get funding from? Are you getting it from individual towns, individual?
I get a small number of Belknap County towns that support.
So we're getting double taxed on this money then. We're getting taxed on the county level and then on a city level as well, possibly.
You get some from the state as well, right?
That's also been cut,
All of it?
about 3/4. We used to get a little over $1 million, and now we've gotten about 300.
So you said that when you refuse the children, 16 of them, they get a guardian ad litem
Yes.
paid for by the state. I'm under the impression that they all get a guardian ad litem and yours is just an extra.
No, ours are volunteers. So the state does not pay for the volunteers, the guardians that we provide.
The question is, does all the children get a paid guardian ad litem? And they get you in addition?
No, it's
So-
one or the other.
One or the other?
Yeah, so the court is mandated to contact CASA first to see if we have a volunteer guardian ad litem who can take the case. And if we don't, then the state gives them a paid guardian ad litem. So it's either a volunteer or a paid. They do get a guardian ad litem, but it's not us and the state, it's us or the state.
It's somebody.
Our guardian ad litems only take about 2 to 3 cases so that they can see all of their kids every month. A case may have 1 child, a case may have 8 children, but it's 1 CASA per case. So that CASA is seeing all 8 kids every month, which is saving the state in total a little over $3.5 million each year, because they're not paying the GALs to do the work that our CASAs are doing.
So it saves the state, but costs local taxpayers.
This way,
It's downshifting
to the local taxpayer.
to the local taxpayer from the state and their responsibility as a state.
I wish we could.
It is downshift. Well, we can say no. And then it shifts it back to the state.
Is that what would happen?
Yes.
It would provide a paid guardian ad litem for more children. But the tax implementation may be higher if we have to say no to more cases. What we save is, you know,
Doesn't come from the property tax.
So they either get a guardian litem from you or from the state,
yes,
and the state's already paid for.
the state has to pay them. They get the guardians ad litem are about $120 per hour, plus the cost of travel. So however long they're in
Your people
court,
paid?
our people are not paid. No,
For all,
our volunteer guardian ad litems are strictly volunteers. They do not get any reimbursement.
so what's the money for?
The money is for their support and training,
Who's?
the volunteers. We have over 600 volunteers for the state. And it does cost to keep them trained in the court system. It does cost to keep them up to date on the new laws and regulations that the court puts out regarding child welfare.
Sounds to me like the ones that are for the state are already trained. We're already paying to train the ones that the state supplies. Or we wind up training others that do the same job. But I don't know, I might be wrong. Anybody can correct me on that, I'd appreciate it.
Downshift.
Downshift thing, I think shift it back to the state.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is that if, and I want to be clear about this. If we zero that out, that money will have to be made up, or the service will have to be made up with what that money covers from the state level. Is that correct?
If we have to refuse more cases, yes.
Which will spread the cost of this out statewide.
Mhm.
And the state would have no, the state doesn't have the right to just say, we're not doing anything with you.
It's mandated by the state that all kids have a volunteer or an advocate in court. We're the only one nonprofit doing this. So if we can't do it, then the state has to pay for it.
You realize that, I mean, I'm over here kind of smiling because, as Representative Bogart said, you know, the downshifting. And this is gonna be happening on everything, but there's a chance for us to upshift.
Where it belongs.
There is, but you know, you also have to understand that the tax implementation could be higher by zeroing us out completely. I could come back next year and say we had to refuse 57 kids because there was no,
State took them over.
the state took them over, and then instead of saving $3.5 million, the state had to pay $7 million.
Yeah, but that's spread out over everybody in the whole state.
We do give the state numbers based off of counties, and they do take that into consideration when it comes to funding.
Any other questions?
I have another question.
I do just want to say that the kids who have a volunteer have less placements, they're moved around less. They're not transitioned from foster care, or they're not stuck in foster care for years and years and years because they have this volunteer who's listening to them and seeing what they need and getting them what they need. Versus a paid GAL who does not have that relationship with the kid. A lot of these kids have such trauma that it takes them months to open up to their CASA. And at that point, a GAL hasn't had that relationship because they've only seen them once. Our CASAs have seen them 6 times. And on the 7th visit, the kid opens up about what's really happened in mom or dad's house. And then we're able to get the support and help and maybe the permanency that they need. Yes.
How much did you say that the state had cut from your proposed budget down there?
So we've lost about 3/4 of our funding.
75%.
75% of our funding from the state. We're trying to get as much back as we can. The new administration change is still working on a few budget items, so we're hoping to get some of that back. But we don't know.
Who took away the 75%? The governor?
It's just, just like everybody else, everyone's pinching pennies.
But who took it?
I can't tell you exactly who took it. All I know is that when we got our approval for state and federal funding, it was drastically less than we anticipated.
Well, I'm on the finance committee in Concord.
Yep.
And I've heard CASA mentioned, but I never heard anything about any cuts.
We
I'm
have,
not saying you're wrong. I may just not be fully informed, but I haven't heard anything about any cuts, and I'm on the committee,
well, I really hope that you.
unless it was the governor.
I really hope you can advocate for CASA at the state and federal level, because without the funding, we're not going to have the success stories that we do with kids being able to be placed in permanent, safe homes for the rest of their life.
At the state level, we've been tasked with reducing the budget by $700 million because we have a bucket of money that the Ways and Means tells us that we're going to get, and we have to distribute that the best way we can. And they said that we're $700 million short, so there's going to be a bunch of different organizations, agencies, whatever, that are not going to get what they want.
And that's where we know the cuts are coming from.
Mike?
So you guys are a nonprofit. What do you do in order, in terms of fundraising and obtaining money outside of government agencies or government, the state, the city, the county, and so on?
Yeah, so we write as many private grants as we can to get funding from grants. We fundraise, we have 2 appeals throughout the year. We have the fall appeal, the winter appeal, I should say, that happens from November to January. We participate in New Hampshire Gives Day. Great online nonprofit fundraising. We have roughly two fundraising events. We have Casa Cares coming up in May, which is our gala. Last year, we raised about 500,000. We have another coming up actually in a couple of weeks. That raises about 60,000.
One last question. What is the executive director of the nonprofit getting paid?
I don't know what her salary is.
That's a big concern of mine, because I'm starting to see more and more nonprofits give inflated salaries to executive directors, and I sit on the board of directors of several nonprofits myself, and it's just one thing that really bothers me, because the whole point of a nonprofit is to help the community, to help these kids, to help everything, not how people's pockets get fat. So
Yeah.
that's just one of my concerns.
Yeah, no, I don't know what she gets paid. I do know that she is in Concord every chance she gets, trying to lobby for the kids to make sure that they're getting what they need.
Asking for money.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes.
So, looking for a consensus on the recommendation was thrown out to remove the 7,500 and make it 0. Charles?
Everybody else already, you started with me?
Yeah.
I start down there and now I'm starting at this, and you want me to start the center?
I'm gonna reluctantly support that this year. Reluctantly.
Matt,
0.
Eric,
0.
Julia,
I'm okay with 0.
and I'm with 0. So 0 is the recommendation. Okay. Are there any other thoughts? Harry?
I got one other thing here that I just have a question to the sheriff. I catch you off guard? You get line item 53,410 cell phones for $5,760. I forgot how many that was, but I just was wondering, there's already phones in the cruisers or radios. Don't the deputy sheriffs have radios?
Yeah, we have mobile radios.
It's just a question I'm not talking about. I just want to know if this is, do we need both?
Yes, cell phones are cell phones, the mobile radios talk to my dispatch, other dispatchers, they don't, it's different technologies, different,
I realize that, but is
Yeah.
it,
they don't connect to each other.
so they can have a private conversation? Is that what it's?
Well, no, like if I called you right now, I can't call you on my portable radio to your cell phone or your home phone. It doesn't work like that.
So that if you want to call somebody in the public that doesn't
Yeah.
have, okay, that
Yeah,
answers
so
my
the
question.
cell phones are specifically utilized for our deputies to be able to call people or for people to call them. And they also, it also is utilized for their emails and everything else that we have. So it's a multi-use tool.
Now that you've explained it, it was a dumb question. Thank you.
Mike? You got a question? No?
I'd like to,
I mean,
uh,
just to throw it out there with the cell phone thing, a lot of companies give you a stipend. You buy your own phone and your own plan, and you might get a stipend towards your cell phone usage, assuming that you use it for purposes of company purposes. You know what I mean? Instead of buying the cell phones and giving them the cell phones and, you know, funding the whole thing, you get a stipend towards it.
So we pay nothing for the phones themselves. And we have a $39.99 a month unlimited data plan. So I think the stipends that the county actually offers is more than that.
That's correct.
And I can tell you that I actually save money by doing this. And on top of that, because of court processes, I don't need a personal cell phone to receive work-related product. Because then it opens it up for potential discovery when it comes to court process. So I just assume, you know, whatever my employees text their spouses back and forth are not part of work product. So I do like to keep them separate. Again, like I said, it is in an expensive program.
Yes, sir.
I overlooked one item on my list, my agenda here. I was looking at the nursing home, line 25-140-53301, contracted nurses. Some of us, some of the people in the public and some of the people in the delegation have worked with me going to the college on the hill up here. To see about getting some LNAs, because LNAs employees, their salaries and their benefits package, you can get three employees for the same price that you pay for two traveling nurses or agency nurses, whichever you want to call them. Normally, the college up there has three courses a year for LNAs. Maximum students is 8. They have them all filled, and somebody from the public and I went up and talked to the president up there and 2 other people that are in that department, if you want to call it that. And it seems like we might have a fourth class starting up in March. And that could save us, you know, if we were to get 6 and eliminate 4, it would cost us the same. If we get 6 employees, eliminate 4 agency nurses, the cost would be virtually the same. It's not exactly, but it's close. And in getting the 2 extra employees and possibly giving more patients per LNA. I think it's what now it's 7 or 8 to 1 is the ratio. Do you know?
8.
It's 8 to 1. So if we could get those 2 extra LNAs, And maybe raise that to 9 in places, not across the board, just in places. It seems that we might be able to save, like 50 grand. I don't know if it, this is all, the nursing home is very difficult for me to deal with. There's too many variables. Shelley?
So as luck would have it, we met in college today and we met with Mr. Tucker and Marty Pasquale. I've been talking with Kathy Weigel. The instructor that they had to do the January class bowed out. So actually the director, Kathy Weigel, is doing the January class. The March class, we just found out today because we had 3 people going to it, is canceled. The person that was on the job hire declined, right? Deb?
Yes, there's no instructor.
There's no teacher. In fact, I was talking about taking a job part-time,
Which is not good.
to work 5:30 to 8:30 to do LNA students, to do something at the college. Because now the class that was gonna be March into May is now looking like it's gonna be May to June or June to July. That right there. And they were looking at 8 is the majority that they can do. We have 6 students starting from the Hewitt Center. They were supposed to start this Friday. They can't. They're gonna start March, I think, 5th. For them. Plymouth high school is almost done. We got 1 student from that out of 19.
I think that's just a message that running the classes is great if they can keep instructors and keep the classes running and fill the classes. Us employing them is a whole nother ballgame. We got 1 out of 19. So, and we have the best offering and we have the best nursing home. But all of that said, that's why at your last meeting, that number was reduced $300,000. And if you want to reduce it another $50,000, that's the number. We know what it takes, and we're trying to find the staff to keep doing what we're doing right now. If we run out of money, we'll be back. We all want to keep the nursing home running. So if that's where you
Let
want
me say something about all of this. One of the people that I've been talking to about this, you mentioned some of the names there, but a name that wasn't mentioned happens to be the instructor. And I know the instructor because she's my sister-in-law for about 40 years. Name is Cheryl Tutan.
Yep.
And she assured me that if everything else lined up, that she would be more than happy to teach this class. So I'm gonna leave this 50 grand as far as, unless anybody else wants to. I want to talk to my sister-in-law and find out what happened, why she backed out of teaching this class.
Yeah, the January class I thought was all set. It started January 21st. It did take place. It's at the Veterans Home and Kathy Weigel, I believe, is the instructor. And the next class that was supposed to be March, like I said, we had 3 people going to it. They had 7 people on the waiting list, so they figured it was enough to start a class. And that instructor bowed out.
Well, I want to, like I said, I'm going to just forget the 50 grand for right now. But I know some of these people that are in question here, and I'm going to talk to them personally and find out why. There's too many things that I had lined up that ended. And I don't understand how that happened. So
I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure if it's maybe the time frame. It was supposed to be Monday and Wednesdays and then Saturday and Sundays. So maybe the weekend, maybe the time frame to do the clinicals and the skills didn't work out.
I will find out because I'm like that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything else to aggravate anybody with.
Does anybody else have anything else?
I do want to find out what the
Are you
score
right?
is.
3.65.
37 million. Oh, you're looking at the percentage?
I want to know what the percentage of spending is up,
3.65.
3.65, and what's the,
If our numbers agree, it should be 37,717,922.
the tax, how much do the taxes go up?
That I don't know.
What percentage?
I'll give you a number in 1 minute.
We concur on those two numbers so far.
I don't know that. No, we don't. I have 4.1% is the increase in the expenditures.
Wait. 4.1, he said 3.65.
Right, we're not,
We started at 4.
we started at a little higher. You'll cut 70,000 roughly today.
So we started with spending up 4%, and now it's up 4.1%.
You started with 4.2% this morning today,
Oh, I didn't.
and now you're at 4.1%.
So you say 41%.
4.1.
All that.
And the tax rate went up, what percentage?
6.2%.
But that started at 6.
It
So,
started at 6-ish, it was 6.4, now it's at 6.2.
What I can tell you, after speaking with, that goes to 3.5 million in the rainy day fund.
That would leave about 3.6, yes.
3.53. Yeah, that's what I had, 3.6. I can't read my own writing.
so I brought up at the last meeting as well, since we made so many cuts to outside agencies, the Belknap County Conservation District, I think we need to level fund at the same rate as last year.
You know what the two numbers
Yeah.
are? I didn't have that in my
Give
mind.
me a second, I'm going there.
We leveled them last year as well. I just think.
So what was that number? Oh,
01, 4619, 55020.
What did they ask for this year?
no, that
$51,700.
61.7,
51,
that's what they asked for this year.
yes,
What did they get last year?
50.
So you want to reduce that by $1,700?
Yeah,
Anybody else want to? I guess I'm all right with reducing this $1,700.
That
Any
would be level
disagree?
funding.
Level funding.
Yes, level funding.
You want to make
Now,
it?
you-
Just a minority leader, so yes, I disagree.
You are that. I didn't think of that.
So we're gonna.
we didn't hack them like we've hacked all the outside agencies. I think that's more than fair enough.
It seems, I think that's a lot smaller organization and there's less employees and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're not getting
So I
salaries,
do think it's, they're not getting salaries that some of the others are. So that $1,700 isn't gonna change the percentage of spending or taxes going up.
So is that a consensus to
Except for
make it
Charlie.
50?
No, we've got a consensus, just make sure.
Good,
All four of you over
Yeah.
there?
okay, so
Before I change the number.
I've spoken to a bunch of the delegation members individually. And I don't believe there's much chance of getting this passed. I think that the increase is too much. I got like 7 of them that I can almost guarantee are gonna vote against it. That's, when you take 7 out of 17 because one of them doesn't show up.
Did anybody have any questions with communities? The last service there was community action. Anybody have questions about that?
I looked at that, but, I had, $56,000, I think.
That's correct.
But, you know, you're talking about Meals on Wheels and, getting old folks to the doctors and having people check on the old folks. I don't know that I want to be responsible for taking away any of that. So I didn't put that on my list.
Okay. Everybody's good with that?
But,
Okay.
I think that we need to find a whole bunch more cuts. Probably 2 or 3 times as much as we found today to even think about getting this passed.
Well,
So my issue is, so a lot of these budget increases are due to contractual obligations. It's salaries, it's insurance, it's stuff that we have no say on. We can't, unless we start cutting people's jobs, which I don't want to do.
Well, I don't necessarily want to do that either, but the fact of the matter is that the cost of living increase is 2.9%. And the expectations for 2025 is it's only going to be 2.5%, down from 2.9%. And we're talking about going up to 6.2% increase. So we are double
well,
the percentage of
What's the
increase.
percentage of the
If
salary
I may-
increases on this budget?
Wages
If I
and
may-
benefits are, oh, no,
One
sorry, I
second.
don't have that.
If I may. Yes, it's an increase. It's an increase. We went, if you go back 3 years ago, when we first came here as a board, we were met with a disaster. And it cost the county taxpayer because of trying to fix this disaster. And yes, I'm gonna call it that. It cost the taxpayer a 33% increase just to get us back to even to where we had a county that could function. So last year, I think we had 2.6% we were able to accomplish, if my memory serves me correct,
2.6% what?
was last year's increase. So we've got a little more, but the thing there, as Representative Boards pointed out, was due to a lot of increases to bring our pay scale up to where it has to be competitive with the private sector. Okay. And in doing that, that's why we had to, the cities, I know going through the city budget and stuff like that, we've had increases of around 4% on labor lines and stuff, trying to stay competitive. If you look around, a lot of these trying to find employees in competing with the private sector versus the government sector, it's been challenging. So, and if you looked at the amount of increases across all the other non-labor line items, they are unfortunate due to inflation. Problem, I'm gonna say, looking at it, because I've used a scalpel, I've used a machete, I've tried all kinds of approaches to looking at this and still have a government that can function. And that's the key there. It's got to be a functional government. Yes, we have the ability to take a machete and cut away. But is that really doing justice in the big picture? Because what we have to look at is the thing we set today and where we cut today, next year, is it going to be, are we going to be in a better place or a worse place? Are we creating next year's problems by trying to surgically cut with a machete things, or do we use the scalpel like we did today and try and tweak it? Now, I do have to agree with you. Harry. Is it gonna be challenged going to the next level? Yes, it's gonna be challenging, but I think if it's presented in a positive manner, that at least we can have enough common ground to work from. Are there gonna be questions? I'm sure there's gonna be questions, but I have to look at myself, and I'm only speaking about myself. I have to look at the responsibility of trying to run a county government. And I think to myself, when I wake up in the morning and shave my ugly face, that we have done a reasonable, cost-effective job in trying to develop a budget that keeps the county functioning, not in a negative manner, but a positive manner, because we have portrayed to everybody out there. We haven't laid anybody off. I mean, I think that's tremendous in this atmosphere that we haven't done that. We haven't even talked about it. We found other ways of trying to maintain so we could keep our people here and show to the rest of them that this is a good place to come work and to come here because you do have stability in your jobs and stuff, and that we're not short-sighting, emotionally short-sighting things that will hinder us trying to keep top-ranked people here. So that's my personal opinion. Mike, you were next.
So we do have a recruitment and retention issue across the board. My whole thing is, Ms. Shackett, can you tell me what this is gonna cost the taxpayer on average? This percentage increase, probably a few pennies on 1,000, correct?
Yeah, it'll be, the average tax rate in the county will be $1.05 as opposed to 99 cents last year. So
it's a 6-cent increase.
6 cents per thousand.
Yes.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, what's that come out to? I mean, to keep the services running in the county, keep everybody employed, make sure we have law and order and safety with the sheriff's and corrections department, and we have the elderly taken care of in our nursing home. I'm more than willing to pay 6 cents on 1,000.
So,
I got another question.
yes, sir.
You had said that the city wages had increased by 4%. Do you know what the,
County on average is gonna be, it's higher, it's about 6.5%.
so the wages in the
From
county?
where it started. So it's 6.5%. And that's due to increases we gave them and also their steps and stuff, correct?
Right, that's a cost of living and a merit increase.
Cost of living merit, and does that include longevity or any of the other things?
No, there are longevity bonuses depending how long you've been here. There are, yeah, I guess that's about it for actual pay. Yeah. I do have that there's a million, almost, 1,000,004 is the increase in expenses. And of that, I'm gonna say, when you started this process anyway, 85% of the increase is wages and benefits.
So you said it was
Which are-
6.4%? Is that what you said?
I said it was 54% of the budget is wages.
Yeah, no, I mean before that, you said, he said that the wages in Laconia went up about 4%. You said they
It was
went,
over 6, yeah, say 6.5.
how much? 6.5?
Yeah, it doesn't work out to an exact percentage like that because they're given at different
Yeah,
times. during
yeah, I
the
just
month.
wanted to ballpark. I got something else that I'd like to say.
Yes.
You know, last term, you said that we had issues when we started last term. The county had been mistreated a little bit, I'll say that. And I thought that last term we corrected that, at least that was a general consensus of people that I spoke to. You know, there was some that you're not gonna make happy either way, and both ends of the spectrum, but the majority of people say, well, I wasn't real happy with it, but it worked. So if you take that we fixed all the problems last term, and that the cost of living increase is 2.9%, that's what the general population is dealing with, at 2.9%. How we get to 6.5% or up here 6.2%. The taxpayers, Charlie,
It's not the 6.5% on salaries.
on
Right.
salaries.
Right. So
Well, everything, it's all in there.
The wage increases,
The 6.5%, but the 6.2% is on everything.
the 6.2% is the increase in the amount of taxes to be raised.
Right, on everything.
Yes.
which equates to
6 cents.
Well, I'm
6
saying
cents.
that 85% of that that's probably not right, but a huge percentage of that the increase is driven by our wages and benefits, which are scheduled to go up 6.5%.
So the only, I'm sorry.
So in my opinion, I think if we ask we're responsible to the taxpayer at the end of the day.
And then,
Well, yes, but at the end of the day, I think if we ask the majority of taxpayers, would they rather cut all these services or spend an extra $24 a year? On average, they would rather spend the extra $24 a year. Because that's basically what it's gonna come out.
I'm not disagreeing
Yeah,
with it.
and I think, you know, that was, this county properly ran and have a good staff and retain and be able to recruit people here. I don't think,
I'm just
it's gonna be
bringing
as
up
bad,
points. I'm
yeah.
bringing up points that are
Yep.
being discussed on the street.
correct.
I'm not necessarily saying that I'm for or
Oh, I
against.
know. I'm just
I'm
saying,
just-
I think that, you know, the $24 a year at the end of the day to have everything properly funded, to keep all our services running, it isn't much to ask.
So, Mr. Chair, if I'm all set if everybody else is, but I just want to say that I think that we're going to get some repercussions from others. Just be prepared, that's all.
My personal belief is I could make a zero-sum budget and I'd still have a problem.
With a few of them,
So
not the whole seven, but a few of
that
them.
is, I don't sit here thinking about those few people. What I do is I sit here and look at what's gonna keep the county functioning at an acceptable level of service so that it can continue to function, the nursing home can function, the sheriff's department can function. We can maintain the buildings. Because that's what cost us 33% my first year, 3 years ago. It was cut to the bone. They used a big old weed whacker and we've seen the end result of that. You know, and it takes time. We had to replenish the sheriff's cars because they were not allowed to do anything. So now we got them on a budget so that they can replace their cars every 3 years. There's a lot of positives that we've done.
I just don't want to get going the other way.
No.
I want to kind of stay in the middle lane.
And I think what we've done here is stayed in that middle lane, trying to. Everything costs more. That's the end result of stuff. And in the near future, things are gonna adjust back out. We're gonna get savings in gas, we're gonna get savings in other areas, and it's gonna work out. Okay, I'm an optimist, but I don't want to dig a hole for us to be in so that we're trying to climb back out in another year. You know, that's my feeling.
You know, we're not going to make people on both sides of the equation happy.
Never
The
will.
county
I just
and the
wanna get
taxpayers. We're not going to make them all happy, so I want to make them all mad equally. if that makes sense.
I look at it, if there's 9 people willing to vote for it, then we're over the hump. 10 would be great.
I should be sure to organize the Democrats on the delegation to do the right thing.
Yeah, you do that, Charlie.
So,
I just had two, I wanted to say 2 things. One, the full delegation asked you to come up with a recommendation. So you have sat here, put in hours, listened, talked, and worked hard on this. It wasn't your job to come back with a budget we like. It was your job to come back with a budget that you think is responsible, and that it will take to run the county. The other thing I wanted to say is the county's been very lucky, actually, that during this time, going from 33% to 2.5% to now 6%, to have $12 million of ARPA funds that took care of huge capital projects that would otherwise have been paid for by local taxpayers. And we don't have that anymore. We're just about at the end of that. We're running out, and we will continue to have infrastructure projects that need to be done and maintained. So the outlook is.
if I may add to that, if you look at, I want to give this to the county commission. It wasn't squandered. That ARPA money was not squandered. It was used so efficiently. We got new windows in all the buildings. We got new roofs on a good portion of the buildings. We had facial work done over on the fronts of the nursing home. I mean, I think everybody has done a tremendous job in trying to stretch the money as far as we could. And I think that's the point where we're at now. The big ticket items, we can thank ARPA for taking care of it. Now we just need to keep things up. So it is my recommendation that we proceed to the delegation with the numbers that we came across with today. And then we'll just deal with that when we deal with it. Did we set the date for the delegation meeting?
I believe it's March 5th.
Oh, I have a tentative date, but if you're telling me it's March 5th, I'm ready.
I thought that was a tentative date, but I didn't know that there was any problems with that.
So shoot it out.
All right.
The 5th.
That's a Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
I won't be there.
At 6
That-
o'clock.
Well, I could be on Zoom, but I won't
Yeah,
physically.
I know Charlie said he couldn't, I know I could be there, but I.
That was why it was tentative. There was,
All right. So what do y'all want to do?
Me, anything after the, as of the 12th of here, so for me, anything after the 12th of March. I'm just me, so I can do the Zoom thing.
Can you do the 4th?
no. That's a Tuesday?
That's a
Yes.
Tuesday, not good.
Not good. No, I can do the 12th or after that.
The 7th?
Yeah, I don't wanna go in the middle of the month, because that gets into town meeting and meetings.
As long as it's in the evening. What time do we usually have? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, yeah.
So you want to
So
go?
let's encourage us to move through it quickly, won't it?
What about the 10th,
The 10th?
What day of the week is that?
Monday?
I can't do the 10th.
See, this is the
Well,
problem.
yeah, because we're all in committee all day. I'm gonna have long days doing the budget for the state down there.
What about the 6th? Have you talked about the 6th, March?
That's Wednesday.
That's
Charlie can't make that.
legislative. We all gonna be in conversation,
Oh,
everybody.
all right. Well,
Well,
About the 12th.
at the 12th. Well,
works for me. Does that work for you, Mike?
Can you live with that?
Yeah.
I know it's towards the middle of the month.
Yeah.
hard to avoid, but
Right.
you know,
our meetings. will be
we really gonna need everybody that's here
Right.
to be at that meeting.
They all agreed on the 12th.
Yeah, it's fine.
So shoot it out for the 12th,
12th it is.
At 6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
All set.
That way we're noticed. Any other questions? I'm gonna work on a presentation of that with these numbers, and then we'll present it to you on the 12th at 6 p.m. Okay, perfect. Can I see you?
You're gonna send,
after this?
you're gonna send that, yeah,
Problem.
you're gonna send out notice.
Thank you.
Yes.
All adjourned.
Very good, thank you.
That's good, Harry. You can be here now.
Charlie,
Be irritated.
you keep